theme music, which we never know what it is, but hi, I'm Hillary.
I'm Davita.
And we're the two Pilates Chicks. Welcome. It is Season 4, Episode 7.
Yes, it is.
Yes, we had no trouble remembering that this time.
Might have had to write it down.
Might have had. And we have to, because we're just so excited. It's our birthday.
It's our birthday month.
Yes. Even though this is May when you're listening, we're actually recording this in April. Mm-hmm. And so we should just tell our sponsor now.
We are shouting out to the Peninsula Beverly Hills because we're going to go get birthday tea.
Yes. We're doing afternoon tea for our birthdays. Yay!
Yay.
So if you're in LA, we'll just assume it's really good.
I've heard it's really good, so we're very excited.
We're very excited. We get to dress up, wear dresses. Oh, yes. So for Pilates teachers, that's like, woo!
That's a big deal.
So we're talking about, and we were joking that we should give trigger warnings. Tactile cues, pros and cons.
Pros and cons to tactile cueing.
Yes. So I think, and you brought this up, what exactly is tactile cueing? Because I see, there we go. There's, like you talked about, a gap of actually what is tactile cueing. Understanding exactly what that is.
Like what it actually means. Because we see workshops and classes and cues where people are talking about a tactile cue.
Or learn tactile cues.
Learn tactile cueing, proper tactile cueing, best way to place your hands on someone, like all those sorts of workshops. But then nobody's actually talking about what a tactile cue actually is, because as we were talking about before, a tactile cue could even be your client pushing on the spring. You're getting feedback.
You're getting a cue there.
You're getting a tactile cue from pushing the springs.
The spring is the hand.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And so if you're like on the Cadillac doing supine leg springs, you're pushing into a spring, you're getting feedback. So that could be a tactile cue, but everybody's talking about it and thinks about it as hands-on.
Yeah.
And when
placing hands on a body.
On the body, the teacher's hands on the client's body. And just with that, there's better and worse ways of doing that.
Yes. And here's where the trigger warning starts to come into effect, because I think both of us are and many of us have seen teachers that push clients and place them in positions, pull them, twist them, to where the client is literally grunting and groaning or like, grimacing, but they think, it's supposed to feel like this. And they can't maintain that.
Yeah.
But the teacher is pushing and moving them out of their actual range of movement.
Yeah, that the teacher's pushing them or pulling them somewhere where the client can't actually get to themselves.
Yes. And there's a reason they can't get there themselves.
So there's a difference between helping a client, like encouraging a little bit extra length or encouraging a little bit, that extra bit of twist, with maybe you like grab their fingertip and like teach them how to like just gently pull that way. So it just kind of encourages them to find it themselves, but you're not actually grabbing them and pulling them.
Yes. Because I love to say this in my teacher training, we can't see into the body.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on. Tightness, structurally, we don't know any of that.
Yeah.
But as you're assessing the client, you can look at their range of motion and realize, I can't literally pick them up and push them into this position because they can't get there.
Right. And if somebody cannot get there themselves, why do we think it's okay to jump over them and manhandle and push them into that position, push them into that extra range that they could get injured from that? And technically, we shouldn't be able to get injured in Pilates. Pilates should be therapeutic, strengthening, good exercise. We don't technically have enough load in Pilates to get injured, but if you're getting overloaded by another person who's pushing you into really extreme flexion, pulling you into a deeper range of mobility than your body will allow for, then you can get injured.
And I actually had a teacher that worked in my space that got injured from another teacher who pushed them beyond what they could do. And she got a bulging disc.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can't you can't take someone's body and take it to an extreme.
Yeah. It should, nothing should be extreme because our whole purpose is trying to teach the clients how to find their range for their body, move through what they can do, maybe encourage them to push a little beyond what they might think they can do, but where their body will allow for.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you see someone, a client being pushed, like what you said, where they're grimacing, right? They're grimacing and they're thinking, I guess this is where I'm supposed to be. I guess this is what's supposed to happen. It's like when someone's getting that massage that they go too deep, right? And it's like, and you're like levitating off the table. It's
trying to jump away.
Yeah, because they think, well, I guess I'm supposed to be feeling it.
Well, some people think, well, it's supposed to hurt, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's okay to feel different sensations, but there's a level.
Pain is not good.
There's a level there.
And I think, and we talked about this a little bit before we kind of jumped on here and talking about overloading client, and we can injure the client. But there's also this whole thing of the scope of practice as a Pilates teacher in terms of hands-on.
Yeah, and that's a major thing.
It is.
That it's not actually within our scope of practice to be severely hands-on with a client.
Right.
Technically, if you want to be super, super strict to our credential, you shouldn't have hands on a client. Maybe like what I was saying, like what you do for me, like putting a hand out for my heel to push into so I feel that extra little bit of reach. But I'm not getting pushed. I'm doing the pushing. Yeah, I'm doing the reaching.
Yeah. Or just like even, placing a hand on someone's back or saying, don't press into my hand more. Don't move away from my hand. Something, but not grabbing onto them. Or, I've seen people like place their fingers in places I'm like, I just wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
It's like way out of my comfort zone, A.
Yeah, so it has to be what you're comfortable with as the teacher. But also what's comfortable for the client and what is
scope of practice.
Yeah. What's allowed.
Because the other thing is if you really look into different states, I know for Texas, when I taught there, it was unless you were a massage therapist or a body work or a PT or chiropractor, there was no hands-on.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. It can vary state to state, but I know for sure when I was getting credentialed in California, getting my teaching certificate, it's the same thing. It's, don't be hands-on if you don't have a hands-on licensure. So massage therapist, chiropractic, acupuncture, of course, physiotherapist. Those are hands-on practices. And so we're in a movement practice. So we can say we're working with somebody for exercise. We can say we're working with them therapeutically, depending on how you're working with somebody. But movement is our specialty, our focus.
And if you take that thought process, movement, tactile cueing, where you're pushing people past this point or really hands-on, you are stopping a movement.
Yeah, you're inhibiting the client's
inhibiting that movement.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So by doing tactile cues, and I think this is where we want to go, where it is, like you said, a hand for them to push into, or like even the spring you were talking about, or a fist for them to kind of push or imagine or whatever it is, or the strap is a tactile cue. Or, I like to do the hand up on top of their head and say, can you lengthen and reach and then take it away and go, just imagine my hand is still there. So you've given them something to then they can go in their range where that, but
they can do it themselves.
They can do it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, really huge. Like teaching them to find it themselves, giving them the gentle cue or that tactile understanding to then do it themselves.
Yeah. In the range of movement that they're capable of doing, but maybe giving them more energy to kind of find maybe a little, like you're talking about, a little bit more.
A little extra. Because sometimes people think, like, if you just say, let's say someone's doing swimming, and you say, okay, can you reach the legs more? reach through the door. And they're like, yeah, I am. And they're just still swimming. And they're like, you know, there's nothing more they can give. But then if you just kind of place your hands on their heels and say, can you push my hands away from you? Mm-hmm. And then, they get that little extra bit. Yeah. So it's that's what the tactile cue should be doing. It's encouraging finding that extra range or finding that right emphasis that you're trying to go for.
Yeah. And I think, and also I kind of wanted to, because I know you have a story too, but it's like, I was in my teacher training, and we had to have a session with this one teacher that taught there, because she was the teacher, right? And we were doing rollbacks, and she took her fist into my belly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just kept pushing in and in, going.
Punching your back.
Punching and going, you know, go further, like wanting me to go away from her hand, but I couldn't anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And she kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I felt like such a failure.
Right.
And so, like, unhappy. And don't touch my stomach.
Some people don't want to be touched.
I don't want to be touched there. It's like not a good thing. And so it's like sometimes you've got to think about when you're pushing people out of that range, like you're talking about, if you give them the cue like you did with the swimming, it gives them that, I can go here, but I'm not being forced to go over there.
Yeah. Not being forced. And that's a huge key. They're not being forced to do something that they can't do or that their body's not comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you brought up a huge point, like having somebody punch into your stomach. Like, we give the verbal cue, like, feel like you're getting punched there when you're trying to, like, give an emphasis of something, right? Sometimes people use that, but you're not actually going to push your hand into somebody's stomach. That's not comfortable. Some people are very sensitive in certain parts of their body, and we shouldn't be pushing that.
No. And that's the other thing, if you think about tactile cues, and I know it's like, and people talk about all the time, like ask permission to touch, and you should always do that if that's, you know, even I do that if I'm going to like put my hand on their shoulder or whatever it is. I say, is it okay if I, put my hand? Yeah. But there's people that, like you said, either they're not comfortable or maybe the culture they're born into and grown up, it's like you don't enter their space. It's like there's things that you don't, or they've had a trauma. Mm-hmm. That happens. That's a huge one.
Yep.
And so you just have to be careful of like this whole, especially hands-on when you're talking about gripping onto somebody.
Yeah.
Because that could trigger things too.
And while you were talking, it just made me think of if we're constantly teaching very heavily hands-on, we're essentially not allowing the client to become independent of us. So then they're relying on us as the teacher for everything. And what we want to do is have clients want to come to us, not like have to come in. We want to be teaching people to find their, like we're saying, their range, their capability, their capacity. And then we're there to guide them. Yeah. We're not there to be like, well, I have to be here for you when you do Pilates because I have to pull you into this position.
Well, I know we had this discussion when COVID hit and we were shut down. Because you and I both are not huge hands-on, especially this aggressive hands-on. So I had no problem jumping into virtual, and my clients had no problem understanding what I wanted them to do. Mm-hmm. So many teachers I heard from that freaking out because they couldn't put their hands on the client, and then the client didn't know what to do either. Yeah. And so it's like you said, we want the client to come to us because we're guiding them or whatever, not because they have to, because we're putting them and we're no, that feels, and you need to do it this way. Yeah. Because that was a huge lesson.
That was actually a really big thing. I'm totally forgotten about that, but that's true.
I thought it snapped when you started talking. I'm like, when we shut down, we had that discussion.
Because, and I think I didn't have a huge freak out moment about that either. And I think because, like you're saying, I'm not a very huge tactile teacher. Yeah. But,
so it's basically the same cues we're always giving.
Yeah. I mean, I will say there were some of my rehabilitative clients who are with me for like post-op things. Like some of those things, it's very helpful to be able to reach out and help them find an alignment when they just can't figure it out themselves because their connectivity is just kind of wonky.
There. Yeah.
And so helping somebody find a certain angle at times to be like, okay, I'm going to grab your feet. Is that okay? And then like place them where you're like, this is what we're trying to find. And then they say, oh, okay. Then they kind of find it. So virtually some of my rehab clients, that was a challenge, but we were still able to do it.
Yeah. Because they had heard your words and they had felt in your life. You can always like, it's like you said, it's like I could tell a client, oh, you know, remember my hand against your heel, or remember, you know, feel the back of your knees lengthening into the mat, and imagine this, blah, blah, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. But
well, and like you're saying, like, okay, so lengthen the knees into the mat. So that's another tactile cue that they can give themselves.
Exactly.
Because you're giving the verbal cue, but they have their mat with them, so they feel that connectivity.
Yeah. So isn't it true then that a tactile cue can be one that they are given themselves? Mm-hmm. They're given themselves? Giving themselves? They are giving themselves.
Yeah. And like we said, like the spring, the mat, like body weight into the mat, like that really is a variation of a tactile cue. But if somebody just says the wording tactile cue, like I first am going to think of somebody pushing somebody else, like their hand. Because
I think that's what, and especially with, like we talked about social media and all these, you see all these people and you think, oh, I have to, that's how you do it. You push them here and you bend them this way and you twist them this way. Like I see people all the time, like really like pushing people into this.
That flex twist. And that is, again, a spot where you potentially could get injured there.
Yeah.
You know, you could injure somebody, and you don't want to be pushing somebody. Maybe in saw, when somebody's in that position, you can, again, like maybe gently grab a hand and like help them feel a little bit of length through both arms to feel the length in that flexion. But again, I would never put my hand on somebody and push them over and pull them into that twist.
Yeah. I was in a workshop, and one of my beautiful friends, he's a teacher, and there was a saw and doing hands-on, but it was like, you've seen this person move. So this teacher had seen this person move. They knew what their movement was, and they were actually kind of using their hands in a way to like, just like if you were just kind of gliding over, like you're just kind of sliding them to kind of give that feeling of rotation, but you're not like,
right.
Do you know what I mean? So,
so like gliding
guiding it, but letting that body do it, and then realizing when they stop, right?
Yes. And that's a huge thing. So the way your like hands are mimicking it, it's like you're like encouraging or like demonstrating what you want their body to do,
but basically they're doing the movement. Yeah.
And that's what I mean when like I think of like encouraging tactile cueing.
Yes.
Like the or I should say tactile cueing, encouraging a certain movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like I like that. Encouraging, guiding, it's almost like explaining to the body.
Yeah.
That this is happening.
I like that.
Yeah. It's like explaining. I had, can't remember who it was, but someone said, in your tactile, and I agree with this, but I think it can be twisted, like we're talking about, where, like, if you're going to give a tactile cue, it needs to speak louder than your words. Which, okay, yes, because like your hand against, and you can feel that, and it's like, you know, you can say, like you said in swimming, reach your legs. I am reaching my legs, but then you put your hand there, and okay. So that is speaking louder than your words.
Yeah.
But I think people think, oh, well, I've got to like get in there. It's got to be louder than my words, and I've got to push and pull. But it's like, no, it doesn't have to mean that you're aggressively...
Not aggressive. So you're not, like, it shouldn't be louder in terms of being more extreme and aggressive. It should be louder in terms of, like, emphasizing the words that you're giving them.
Yeah. I
or
like that.
Pairing with it in a good way.
Like the mind going, oh, okay, I understand that.
Yeah, not that it's supposed to be standing on the reformer on top of somebody pulling them over somewhere, you know.
Oh, I see where you're going. Yeah.
Like be having that pairing, vocal and tactile cueing should pair together. And help make it a whole if the cueing in one or the other doesn't make sense to the client on its own.
Yeah. And I think it's also really important with tactile cues is we can't see into the body. We don't know, like even people's, structure, their bones, like your collarbones. Not everyone's collarbone is like this wide from this to this. I mean, it's like
people are different.
And so we can't see in. So watching the client move on their own and seeing what their movement is, you have to do that before you can sit there and go, oh, I'm going to give this tactile cue because I want it to be like this. It's like, well, it's not going to be like that for this client because their movement is like this.
Right.
So we need, as teachers, I think, on a soapbox, to really look at that individual body in front of us.
Yeah. And that goes back to for us as our two Pilates Chicks motto is teach to the body in front of you. And it means that we need to be present in the session. We need to be conscious of the person that's with us and aware of what they need, what they can and cannot do, what they're comfortable with. And some people are comfortable being pushed in certain ways and some people aren't. And we just need to be compassionate to that and aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. But I also, think it's like, be aware also of, what are you actually capable of doing in that session, whether it's from your state, your city, your credentials.
Yeah. Because if somebody is a Pilates instructor, they have their certificate, and then they're also a massage therapist, they do have a little bit more leeway for doing some more hands-on work. At the same time, though, I would argue when somebody is in a session for Pilates
movement,
you're there for a movement session.
It's not a massage or a stretch session.
Yeah. And I would say probably if somebody wants a massage and stretch session, they need to book a massage session. If it's legal, that's good.
Yeah.
But also, what is the client there for?
Exactly. They're there for Pilates, not a massage.
Yeah. Though a lot of clients do just want to come into Pilates and get stretched.
Yeah.
And some teachers do teach to that. And that, again, I feel like is it's not Pilates, and you're keeping your client reliant on you.
Yep. And didn't Mr. Pilates want for everyone to be able to do it on their own?
On their own. That is the classical model.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, we still want them to come in, but it's not because they, like you said, they need us to put them and fix them and do this and put them in this position, but to guide them because every day they come in, it is a different body. It is different movement for them.
Every day, yeah.
So we can cue it different. And those tactiles could be different, but yeah, I think it's important to realize what is tactile cueing.
Yeah. So what are you as a teacher comfortable with? What is the client comfortable with? What is within scope of practice? And what's appropriate?
What is appropriate?
And what's actually needed?
Yeah. It's like even a golfer, someone that you're working on that, not only balancing them out because they're, constantly going this one direction, right? But even a golfer, you're not going to push them into these positions like, well, this is going to help your golf game, so we're going to twist
get more twisting.
More. But it's I think it's just really important to remember with tactile cueing, especially hands on a body, is not putting them past their range of movement.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's important.
I think that's important definitely for, again, scope of practice and safety.
Injury. Yeah.
Just what is safe and what are you actually trying to do? Because, I mean, the static, strong stretching, first of all, research has proven that that's not
good.
And it
beneficial.
doesn't, yeah, it's not beneficial. It doesn't actually do much. And
which is why I think Pilates is so great.
Yeah, because it's lengthening.
It's a lengthening in movement, which
motion.
is more beneficial
In the long term.
In the long term. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that whole, like, pushing someone, like, get in this position.
Go over there. I mean, when someone's super annoying, you can just, no.
It's like, I'm going to push you over here into the corner.
Push you over there.
Yeah, no. But I think the takeaways here, because, and I hope we don't get a bunch of hate mail. Tactile cueing. But I think that I'll jump off a cliff here, especially with social media. You see all these things, and we get them too, where you get, do this workshop on how to do this hands-on, or do this workshop to how to do this and this and this and that and that. And I just don't think there's one clear-cut answer for Tactile with every single client, because every single client's different, like you said.
Everybody's different, yeah.
And I also think that it puts this pressure on the teacher that they need to be hands-on in that way.
Like that's expected.
It's expected. Mm-hmm. And it's not.
Yeah, it's not. You don't have to. Especially if you're not comfortable with it.
No. And especially if you're sitting there and pushing and pulling and twisting and standing on clients, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
I mean, we used to do that as young ballet dancers when we would all stand on each other's like backs while we were in the splits. And that was encouraged at the time. It has since been understood that that's not good, helpful for the body and not good for you. So
I'm trying to picture that. You're in a split? Mm-hmm. Are you folded over?
You're folded over in a split.
Okay, so a side
stand
split.
Up on you. No, forward. Either.
Oh my gosh. I'm hurting in places I don't.
Don't.
Oh my gosh. No. Okay, so I don't know. I feel like we should ask people their opinion on this.
I'd be really interested in hearing people's opinions on it. But
because I'm sure there's some strong opinions.
Yeah, I'm sure. Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm. And that's just it. And I know for me as a new teacher, I was not comfortable even like putting a hand on someone's shoulder, much less getting into it that way. But I also think, like you said, I mean, when things exploded during the pandemic, I mean, being able to have those tactile cues that the client can do on their own made a huge difference when it went time.
Yeah, so I
virtual.
think basically just being able to not rely on tactile cueing to speak for you. Mm-hmm. That it's the verbal cueing that really needs to be available, that conversation with the client, and not forcing somebody in somewhere. Not physically forcing it. Yeah.
Because no one wants to be forced into something they can't do.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. That's why they're grimacing. And no, I'm kidding. Yeah. Although I did see that, but that grimacing. I would do that. Be like, oh, that doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, it's not great. And I'll just throw in one quick last little thing. Like as a hypermobile person,
that we didn't even go there.
I just thought of it. Well, just quickly, I'm super hypermobile, so if I'm able to go way, way, way there, but does that mean I should? No. And does that mean somebody should push me into what I can do? No. And some massage therapists will do that sometimes, and I'm like, oh, no, like, I know my leg can go there, but that's not good for me. Please don't. You know?
Yeah. And that's so true, because it's in your range.
Mm-hmm. It is. My body can go there.
Your body can go there. But if it keeps going there, over and 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 over, and being forced there, it's not
it could become an injury, and also goes back to do I actually need it? Why are we pushing it there? Is that necessary? Yeah.
Because your tactile cues should be more on stability.
Mm-hmm. Finding that length in the range. The control in the range.
The controlled length. Yep. Mm-hmm. We've been working on.
I think pretty well.
Pretty well. We proved it today. Yeah. So if y'all have comments or want to email, because I would love to hear what people have to say about tactile cues, because there's hands-on and there's tactile. I feel like they've gotten kind of meshed together.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're kind of...
There's separate ideas there.
In my brain, they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That was good. And Peninsula was our sponsor. They don't know it.
A little shout out to the
We'll
Peninsula.
take some pictures. We got, a week?
Yep, next week.
A week and 2
birthday
days.
tea
Yay.
time.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next time.
Next time.